Well, time for Media Watch now. Emma James is with us in the studio. Good to see you, Emma. And of course, top story today, a British Member of Parliament gunned down in her constituency by what police have described as a lone attacker. She was about to meet people in her constituency for a public meeting. Tell us about some of the reactions online.
Yes, well, Jo Cox, who was only elected last year, was a rising star of the opposition Labour Party in the United Kingdom. Campaigning's been suspended ahead of next week's Brexit referendum in the wake of her death. Politicians from all sides, they're paying tribute to her. She was most notably talked about by Jeremy Corbyn, the leader, of course, of the Labour Party, who made a lengthy statement paying tribute to her, and it is really beautiful, very, very nicely worded and very human. He says here, the whole of the Labour family and indeed the whole country is in shock and grief at the horrific murder of Jo Cox. Jo had a lifelong record of public service and a deep commitment to humanity, he said, because before she became an MP, she worked for Oxfam and an anti-slavery charity called the Freedom Fund. David Cameron, the British Prime Minister, has also been paying tribute to her. The death of Jo Cox is a tragedy. She was a committed and caring MP. My thoughts are with her husband Brendan and her 2 young children. Now, Jo was staunchly pro-Europe. This was her last tweet. Immigration is a legitimate concern, but it's not a good reason to leave the EU. And there is speculation that that may have had something to do with the reasons for her murder, or the motives, I should say, rather than reasons. There have been many reports that witnesses said they heard the attacker shouting "Britain first," not only as he carried out the attack, but then when he was being arrested. Some of those have now been called into question, and obviously there is a police investigation continuing at this moment in time. They are not being drawn on what they believe that the motive could be. But obviously Britain First itself has been speaking out. Britain First is they describe themselves as a patriotic political party and street defence organisation. Basically, they are a nationalist far-right movement in the United Kingdom. There's been a statement from their leader, Paul Golding, where he said that we have to separate hearsay from the facts. He's also spoken to the Mirror newspaper, in which he said the attacker may have shouted, "We have to put Britain first." Obviously, at the moment, it is all speculation, and we are waiting for more confirmation of exactly what went on in that street. The majority of people right now are very much focusing on tributes to be paid to this woman, who, despite having been an MP for a short time, clearly made quite the impact. BuzzFeed Politics has posted this excerpt from her maiden speech in Parliament, speaking of Batley and Spen, where she was both born and elected. She said, "We celebrate our diversity. What surprises me time and time again as I travel around the constituency is that we are far more united and have far more in common with each other than things that divide us." Now, journalists too have been paying tribute to her in the United Kingdom. What a crappy, god-awful day, says Gabby Hinsliff. No good can come of this. But if Jo Cox has a legacy, I hope it's to drain some of the hate from politics. Enough. This journalist as well, Jo Cox was an MP for just a year. The tributes to her are a measure of how much she achieved and how much more she would have done. And of course, her husband, Brendan Cox, posted this just yesterday. Yesterday, they were taking part in that Brexit flotilla, the Battle of the Thames.
Yeah, the family was on one of the boats, wasn't it?
Exactly. The 2 small children there at the front, and the couple sitting behind. But today he's posted this image of her, which is clearly how he wants people to remember her. She was infamous, really, in the Houses of Parliament for the fact that she lived on a houseboat.
Yes.
But he's also released a statement, and in it he said she would have wanted 2 things above all else to happen now. 1, that our precious children are bathed in love, and 2, that we all unite to fight against the hatred that killed her. Jo would have no regrets about her life. She lived every day of it to the full.
All right. Okay, let's move on to another story. The father of one of the people killed in the Paris attacks last November, the only American, I believe, killed in the attacks, it says he will now sue Facebook, Twitter and Google. Tell us why. Yes,
Reynaldo Gonzalez has social media sites in his sites, as it were, because he says that they have helped the Islamic State group to recruit members and spread extremist propaganda. The legal documents that some of the journalists reporting on this have seen say that Facebook, Twitter and Google are accused of enabling ISIS to become the most feared terrorist group in the world. Google is involved, of course, because of its ownership of the YouTube video sharing website. Reynaldo Gonzalez is suing for damages, saying that tech giants even rake in profits from placement advertisements next to these postings by ISIS. And now his daughter was Nomi Gonzalez, as you said, the only American victim during those attacks on November the 13th here in Paris. She was in the French capital studying, 23 years old. She was one of 19 to be killed at La Belle Équipe restaurant. Now, Fortune reports that this lawsuit is similar to another one against Twitter that's been brought by the widow of a US contractor killed by ISIS in Iraq. They say that that looks set to fail, and it is a very uphill struggle that Mr. Gonzalez will be facing. However, this issue of social media responsibility, especially in the wake of what happened on Monday night, is certain to be in the spotlight now because, of course, Facebook Live was used by the man on Monday night who killed a police officer and his wife in just west of Paris in Magnonville.
Okay, Emma, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you very much indeed, Emma James there.